The city never slept, but Adrian Cole wished it would. From the floor-to-ceiling glass walls of his penthouse, the skyline stretched endlessly, glittering like a sea of artificial stars. Luxury towers pierced the sky, their lights blinking in quiet competition, while far below traffic flowed in endless streams of red and white. It was beautiful. It was powerful. It was empty. Adrian stood barefoot on cold marble, a crystal glass of untouched whiskey resting in his hand. The ice had long melted, the amber liquid now diluted, just like everything else in his life. Once upon a time, this view had meant something. It had symbolized victory. Now it felt like a cage made of glass and gold. Behind him, the faint hum of laughter echoed through the penthouse. The party was still going strong. Expensive perfume lingered in the air, mixing with the scent of aged wine and polished wood. Music pulsed, softly curated by a world-class DJ flown in just for the evening. Every detail had been perfect, every guest carefully selected, every smile rehearsed. Adrian took a slow sip of the watered-down whiskey and winced. Not because of the taste, but because of the realization creeping deeper into his bones. He felt nothing. Adrian. The voice cut through his thoughts. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Vanessa. Tall, stunning, draped in a dress that cost more than most people earned in a year. She walked toward him with effortless grace, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. "You've been hiding out here all night," she said, placing a manicured hand on his arm. "Your party is inside." "You know my party," Adrian repeated quietly. Vanessa smiled, but her eyes flickered. Not with affection, but with calculation. "Yes, yours. Everyone's here for you." That was exactly the problem. He turned to face her, fully studying her expression. Perfect makeup, perfect posture, perfect everything. "Tell me something," he said, his voice calm but sharp. "If I lost everything tomorrow, would you still be here?" The question caught her off guard, but only for a moment. She laughed lightly, brushing imaginary dust off his shoulder. "Adrian, don't be dramatic. I'm serious." She tilted her head, her smile tightening. "Why would you even ask that?" "Because I want to know." There was a pause, brief, almost invisible, but Adrian saw it. And that was enough. Vanessa leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You won't lose everything, men. Like you don't fall. You control the fall." That wasn't an answer. It was a strategy. Adrian nodded, slowly, pulling his arm away. "I should get back inside," she said, recovering quickly. "People are asking about you." Of course they were not because they cared, because his presence validated their importance. He watched her walk away, her confidence, returning with each step, blending seamlessly back into the crowd of elites. Adrian turned back to the city. The noise inside grew louder. Laughter, glasses clinking, conversations layered with ambition and subtle manipulation. He could already predict every interaction waiting for him. A politician seeking funding, a businessman pitching a partnership, a model hoping for attention, a friend looking for favors. It was always the same, always. An hour later, Adrian finally stepped back into the party. The shift was immediate. Heads turned, conversations paused, smiles widened. "Adrian, there you are." A man in a tailored navy suit approached, extending his hand eagerly. "I was just telling someone about your last acquisition." "Brilliant move." Adrian shook his hand, his expression neutral. "Thank you. I mean it." The man continued, leaning in. "The way you cornered that market genius." Adrian nodded again. He didn't mention that it had cost hundreds of employees their jobs. That part never made it into praise. "Have you thought about expanding into—" "Yes," Adrian interrupted gently. The man blinked. "Oh, you have." "I've thought about everything." And he had. That was the problem. Nothing surprised him anymore. Nothing challenged him. Nothing felt human. Across the room, a group of women laughed loudly, one of them glancing at Adrian before whispering something to the others. They all turned, their interest suddenly amplified. He knew that look. He'd seen it 1,000 times. Not curiosity, opportunity. Adrian moved through the crowd like a ghost in his own world, offering polite nods, brief responses, and practiced smiles. Inside, he felt like he was suffocating. By midnight, the party reached its peak. Music, louder laughter, wilder inhibitions lower. Adrian stood near the bar, watching it all unfold like a detached observer. A young man stumbled, slightly drunk, on expensive champagne. Two investors argued in hushed tones. A couple flirted with exaggerated charm. Everything felt staged, artificial, disposable. Sir Adrian turned. It was Daniel, his personal assistant. Efficient, loyal, always composed. You wanted to be informed when the board members arrived. Daniel said, "They're here." "Yes, sir. They're in the private lounge." Adrian exhaled slowly. "Even tonight, especially tonight." "Give me 5 minutes," he said. Daniel nodded and stepped away. Adrian stared at the bar, then at the glass in his hand. Without another thought, he placed it down and walked toward the private lounge. The atmosphere inside was different, quieter, sharper, more dangerous. Four men sat around a sleek glass table, their expressions serious. These were not party guests. These were power players. Adrian, one of them said, standing. "Good to see you." Adrian took his seat. "Let's make this quick," he said. For the next 30 minutes, they discussed numbers, expansions, risks, and projections. Millions, billions, decisions that would shape industries. Adrian spoke with precision, his mind as sharp as ever. On the outside, breaking. When the meeting ended, one of the men leaned back and smiled. "You're at the top of your game, Adrian. Untouchable. Untouchable." The word echoed in his mind. He nodded politely and stood. But as he walked out, the word twisted into something else. Alone. By 2:00 a.m., the party began to thin. Guests left in luxury cars, their laughter fading into the night. The penthouse slowly returned to silence. Staff moved quietly, cleaning up the remnants of excess. Empty glasses, discarded napkins, forgotten conversations. Adrian stood exactly where he had been hours before. The city still glowed, unchanged, unbothered. Daniel approached him once more. "Everything has been handled, sir," he said. "Tomorrow's schedule is already prepared. You have a call with cancel it." Daniel blinked. "Sir, cancel everything tomorrow." There was a pause. Daniel had worked for Adrian long enough to recognize when something was different. "Of course," he said carefully. "May I ask if everything is all right?" Adrian didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the city, his reflection faintly visible in the glass. A man with everything. A man with nothing. "Daniel," he said finally, his voice quieter than before. "Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to be invisible?" Daniel frowned slightly. "Invisible, sir. To walk into a place where no one knows your name. No one expects anything from you. No one wants anything from you." Daniel hesitated. "I can't say I have, sir." Adrian nodded. "I think about it all the time." He turned to face him. "For once, I want to know what it feels like to be valued without the weight of who I am." Daniel studied him carefully. "This sounds serious." "It is." A long silence stretched between them. Then Adrian said the words that would change everything. "I want to disappear." Daniel's composure cracked just slightly. "Disappear, sir." "Yes." Adrian walked past him, heading toward his room. "For a while, no one needs to know where I am. Not the board, not the media, no one." Daniel followed, his mind racing. "Sir, that would raise questions, concerns. The company. The company will survive, Adrian said firmly. It always does. And you, Daniel asked. Adrian stopped at the doorway. For the first time that night. Perhaps for the first time in years. His expression softened into something real, something vulnerable. I don't know, he admitted. Then after a pause, he added, but I need to find out. That night, as the city continued its endless rhythm, Adrian Cole made a decision that no one saw coming. He would walk away from power, from wealth, from identity, from everything that defined him, not because he had lost it, but because he needed to know who he was without it. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of skyscrapers and silent deals, a quiet coastal village waited, unaware that its shores were about to change the life of a man who had everything and nothing at all. The journey out of Adrian Cole's world began before the sun rose. No headlines, no farewell announcements, no final board meeting, just silence. At exactly 4:30 a.m., a black SUV pulled out of the underground garage of Adrian's penthouse, its headlights cutting through the early morning haze. The city, usually loud and restless, was unusually quiet, as if it hadn't yet realized that one of its most powerful men was leaving it behind. Inside the vehicle, Adrian sat in the back seat, dressed not in his usual tailored suit, but in something painfully ordinary. Faded jeans, a plain shirt, and worn boots. Beside him was a small duffel bag. No designer luggage. No security team, no luxury. Just the bare essentials. Daniel sat in the front passenger seat, unusually quiet. This is still a bad idea, he said finally, his voice low. Adrian gave a faint smile. That's how I know it's the right one. Daniel turned slightly. At least let me assign someone to stay nearby for safety. No, sir. Adrian, he corrected gently. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it completely. Daniel sighed, rubbing his forehead. You built an empire. You don't just walk away from something like that. Adrian looked out the window as the city began to fade behind them. I'm not walking away, he said quietly. I'm walking towards something. And what exactly is that? Adrian paused. I don't know yet. That answer unsettled Daniel more than anything else. Hours later, the road changed. The smooth asphalt of the city gave way to rough, uneven paths. Skyscrapers disappeared, replaced by stretches of green clusters, of small houses and endless skies that felt open in a way Adrian had never experienced. The air itself felt different, cleaner, real. By the time they reached the coastal village, the sun was high, casting golden light over the shimmering water. The sea stretched endlessly, its waves rolling in steady rhythm against the shore. Fishing boats, old wooden weathered, lined the beach. Men moved about, repairing nets, hauling baskets, shouting to one another over the sound of the wind and water. Life here wasn't polished. It was raw, and it was alive. The SUV came to a stop just outside the village. Daniel turned to him. This is where I leave you. Adrian nodded for a moment. Neither of them moved. Sir. Daniel started, then stopped himself. Adrian, if you change your mind, I won't. Daniel studied him one last time, then gave a small, reluctant nod. Take care of yourself. Adrian stepped out of the car. The heat hit him, immediately wrapping around him like a heavy blanket. The scent of salt water filled his lungs, sharp and unfamiliar. The SUV drove away without ceremony. No one noticed. No one cared. For the first time in years, Adrian Cole stood somewhere unnoticed. He exhaled slowly. This was it. The village didn't welcome him. Not at first. Strangers were rare here, and strangers who looked like Adrian, even in simple clothes, were even rarer. Eyes followed him as he walked. Children paused their games. Women whispered quietly. Men watched him with guarded curiosity. Adrian felt it immediately. In the city, attention had been constant, but it had been admiration, greed, expectation, Here it was suspicion. He approached a group of fishermen sitting near a pile of nets. "Good afternoon," he said. They didn't respond immediately. One of them, an older man with a weathered face and sharp eyes, finally spoke. "You're not from here." It wasn't a question. No, Adrian admitted. "What do you want?" Work that got their attention. A few of them exchanged glances. "Work," another man repeated, laughing slightly. "You?" Adrian held his ground. "Yes." The older man stood slowly, stepping closer. He circled Adrian once, observing him like a puzzle. "Your hands," he said, grabbing Adrian's wrist. They were clean, soft, untouched by real labor. "You've never done this kind of work before." Adrian didn't lie. "No." The man released him. "Then go back to where you came from. I can learn. You'll quit." "I won't." The man studied him again, longer this time. "What's your name?" Adrian hesitated for a fraction of a second. That name, Adrian Cole, carried weight, power, history, but here it meant nothing, and that was the point. "Ao," he said. The name felt strange on his tongue, but also freeing. The older man nodded slowly. "I'm Bako." He gestured toward the sea. "The ocean doesn't care who you are. It only cares if you're strong enough to survive it." "I understand." Bako shook his head. "No, you don't." He turned and began walking away. "Be here before sunrise tomorrow. If you're late, don't come back." Adrian nodded. "Thank you." Bako didn't respond. That night, Adrian stayed in a small rented room made of wood and rusted metal sheets. The bed was thin. The air was warm. There was no air conditioning, no soft lighting, no city noise, just the sound of waves crashing in the distance and silence. Real silence. Adrian lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, there were no emails waiting, no decisions demanding attention, no one needing something from him. It should have felt uncomfortable. Instead, felt peaceful. The next morning came early, too early. A loud knock on the door jolted him awake. Ao Bako's voice. Adrian sat up, disoriented for a moment, before reality settled in. This was his life now. He quickly got dressed and stepped outside. The sky was still dark, painted in shades of deep blue and purple. The air was cooler. The village was already awake. Lanterns flickered. Voices murmured. Boats creaked as they were pushed toward the water. Bako stood with his arms crossed. "You're not late," he said. Adrian nodded, slightly out of breath. "I said I wouldn't be." Bako gestured toward a boat. "Get in." Adrian climbed in, trying to mirror the movements of the others. Didn't go smoothly. He slipped slightly, earning a few chuckles. "Careful," one of the fishermen said. "The sea hasn't even started with you yet." Out on the water, everything changed. The land disappeared behind them. The waves grew stronger. The boat rocked unpredictably. Adrian gripped the edge tightly, his knuckles turning white. "Relax," Bako said. "If you fight, you'll fall." "I'm not fighting," Adrian replied. "You are." Bako handed him a net. "Throw it." Adrian looked at it, then at the sea. How Bako sighed. "Watch." He demonstrated effortlessly, the net spreading wide before sinking into the water. "Now you," Adrian tried and failed. The net tangled midair and dropped uselessly beside the boat. Laughter erupted. "City boy," someone shouted. Adrian clenched his jaw. "Again," Bako said. He tried again and again and again, each attempt slightly better than the last, but still far from good. By the time the sun rose, Adrian's arms ached. His hands were blistered, and his pride had taken several hits. But something unexpected stirred within him. Determination. Days turned into a routine. Wake before dawn. Work until exhaustion. Return with whatever the sea allowed. Adrian struggled badly. He got seasick. He fumbled nets. He moved too slowly. The villagers laughed at him, openly, but he didn't quit. Each day his hands grew rougher. Each day his body adapted. Each day he learned, and slowly something began to shift. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting day, Adrian sat alone by the shore staring at the horizon. His muscles burned, his skin stung. He had never felt so physically drained in his life. Yet he felt more alive than he had in years. A group of children ran past him laughing freely, their feet kicking up sand. A woman called out to them, her voice warm. Nearby fishermen argued playfully over their catch. Life here wasn't perfect, but it was real. No filters, no masks, no hidden agendas. Adrian leaned back, letting the sound of the waves wash over him. For the first time, no one knew his worth. No one cared about his status. No one expected anything beyond what he could do, and strangely that felt like freedom. But just as he began to settle into this new life, a voice broke through his thoughts. "You're doing it wrong." Adrian opened his eyes. A young woman stood a few steps away holding a basket of smoked fish. Her expression was amused, curious, sharp. She tilted her head slightly. "You hold the net like someone who's never worked a day in his life." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "And you can tell that just by looking." She smiled. "Yes." She stepped closer, studying him. "You're not from here." That. Obvious. Very. She extended her hand, slightly gesturing toward the net beside him. "Show me." Adrian hesitated, then picked it up and demonstrated. She watched carefully, then shook her head. "Terrible." Adrian almost laughed. "Helpful." She grinned. "Do you want to learn or not?" There was something different about her. She wasn't impressed. She wasn't intimidated. She wasn't trying to gain anything. She was just honest. Adrian nodded. "All right, teach me." She stepped beside him, reaching for the net. "First, stop thinking so much," she said. "The sea doesn't like overthinking." Adrian glanced at her. "And what does it like?" She met his gaze, her eyes bright. "Respect." There was a pause. Then she added, "And patience." Adrian watched her as she demonstrated. Her movements smooth and confident. For a moment he forgot about everything else. Forgot about who he used to be. Forgot about the world he left behind. All that existed was this moment, this place, and her. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't look at him as she answered. "Zara." Adrian repeated it softly. "Zara." Then she looked at him. "And you?" He hesitated for just a second, then smiled. "Ow." She studied him again, as if trying to see through him. She said, "We'll see about that." And just like that, without knowing it, Zara stepped into his life. And nothing would ever be the same again. The sea had a rhythm. Was beginning to understand that. Not control it, never that, but feel it. The rise and fall of the waves. The way the wind whispered before it shifted. The subtle pull beneath the surface that warned of something stronger coming. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious, but it was always there. Much like the quiet change happening inside him. Days had passed since he first arrived in the village. His hands, once smooth and untouched, were now rough-lined with small cuts and healing blisters. His shoulders ached constantly, and his skin had taken on a deeper tone under the relentless sun. He was no longer the man who stepped out of that SUV, but he wasn't fully out either. Not yet. That morning the sun rose slowly, spilling gold across the horizon. The fishermen had already returned from the early catch, their boats dragging lightly onto the sand as gulls circled overhead. Voices filled the air. Laughed, ee, ee, ee. Laughter, complaints, bargaining. Ao sat on an overturned wooden crate, carefully untangling a stubborn fishing net. His fingers moved slower than the others. Still learning, still adapting. You're doing it wrong. The voice came again. Familiar now. Ao didn't look up immediately. Instead, he continued working, pretending not to hear. I can see you ignoring me, she added. That made him pause. He glanced up. Zara stood a few steps away, balancing a wide basket of smoked fish on her head as if it weighed nothing. The morning light caught her face just right, highlighting the confidence in her eyes, the faint amusement playing on her lips. She had that same look again, like she knew something. He didn't. Maybe I like doing it wrong, Ao said calmly. Zara raised an eyebrow. That's a strange preference, he shrugged slightly. It's working, isn't it? She walked closer, lowering the basket from her head with effortless grace and setting it beside her. Then, without asking, she crouched beside him. No, she said simply. It's not. Ao glanced at her hands as she reached for the net. They moved quickly, skillfully undoing knots that had frustrated him for the past 10 minutes and seconds. You pull here, she said, demonstrating. Not there. Ao leaned in slightly, watching closely. That's what I did. No, you thought you did, she corrected. He let out a quiet breath somewhere between a sigh and a laugh. You enjoy this, don't you? He asked. Enjoy what, being right? Zara smiled. I don't enjoy being right. She looked up at him. I enjoy when people finally realize I am. Ao shook his head, a faint smile breaking through despite himself. You're very confident. I have to be, she replied. The world doesn't make space for people who aren't. There was something about the way she said it. Casual but weighted. Not arrogance, experience. Ao studied her for a moment longer than necessary. She noticed. You stare a lot. She said. You observe a lot, he replied. Someone has to, especially when new people arrive pretending to be something they're not. That caught him off guard. Ao's fingers tightened slightly around the net. I'm not pretending, he said carefully. Zara didn't respond immediately. She finished, fixing the last knot, then handed the net back to him. Throw it, she said. Ao stood, stepping toward the water. He adjusted his grip the way she showed him, took a breath, and cast the net. It spread wider this time. Cleaner, not perfect, but better. When he turned back, Zara was already watching him. She said. What, that was acceptable? Poe chuckled. High praise. Don't get used to it. From that day on, Zara became a constant presence in Ao's life. Not in an obvious way. She didn't seek him out. She didn't follow him. But somehow their paths kept crossing. At the shore, by the market, near the boats. Each time there was something small: conversations, sharp remarks, quiet observations that pulled them closer. One afternoon the sun hung heavy in the sky, and the heat pressed down on the village like a weight. Ao had just returned from the sea, exhausted and drenched in sweat. The catch had been poor, tensions among the fishermen higher than usual. He walked toward the market area, hoping to find something to eat. That's when he saw her again. Zara stood behind a wooden table, arranging rows of smoked fish with practiced efficiency. The scent of it filled the air, rich, warm, unmistakable. Customers moved in and out, some bargaining, some buying without question. Zara handled them all with ease. Firm but fair. Confident, but not rude. Ao leaned against a nearby post, watching quietly. You're staring again, she said without looking up. Ao smirked. You always notice. I notice everything. Then you should know I'm just deciding if your fish is worth buying. That made her look up. Her eyes narrowed slightly. My fish is the best in this village. That sounds like confidence again. That sounds like truth. Ao pushed himself off the post and walked closer. All right, he said. Convince me. Zara folded her arms. I don't need to convince you. Either you recognize quality or you don't. Ao tilted his head. That's your sales strategy. It works. He glanced at the fish, then back at her. Fine, I'll take one. Zara handed him a piece wrapped neatly. He took a bite. It was good. Better than good. But he kept his expression neutral. Well, she asked. He shrugged. It's all right. Zara stared at him. Then, without warning, she reached forward and snatched the fish back from his hand. Then you don't need it. Al blinked. Wait. Go buy from someone else, she said, already turning away. Al laughed genuinely this time. You're serious. Very. He shook his head, still smiling. Fine. It's good. Zara paused, then slowly turned back. Good. Very good. He corrected. She studied his face, searching for sincerity, then handed the fish back to him. Better, she said. Later that evening, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The village slowed, the noise softened. Ao found himself walking along the shore, the cool breeze easing the day's exhaustion. He didn't expect to see her there, but she was. Zara stood near the water, her feet bare against the sand, her gaze fixed on the horizon. For once she wasn't busy, wasn't talking, wasn't smiling. She looked still. Ao hesitated for a moment, then walked closer. You're quiet, he said. Zara didn't turn. So are you. I can be. I've noticed. He stopped beside her, following her gaze out to the sea. The waves moved steadily, reflecting the fading light. It's different at this time, she said softly. The sea. She nodded. It's calmer, like it's resting. Al crossed his arms loosely. Or maybe it's just preparing for tomorrow. Zara glanced at him briefly. Always thinking ahead. Old habit. She studied him for a moment. You don't talk like the others, she said. Al felt a flicker of tension. How do they talk? Simple, direct. She tilted her head slightly. You think before you speak too much sometimes. Ao exhaled quietly. And that's a problem. Not a problem, she said. Just different. Silence settled between them again. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was easy. Zara wrapped her arms around herself lightly, the breeze picking up. Why did you come here? She asked suddenly. The question landed heavier than expected. Ao looked out at the water, choosing his words carefully. I needed a change. That's not an answer. It's the truth. Zara shook her head slightly. No one comes here just for a change. They come because they have nowhere else to go, or because they're running from something. Ao's jaw tightened just a little. And what do you think I'm doing? Zara finally turned to face him fully. Her eyes were sharp again. Searching. I think, she said slowly. You're hiding. The word hung between them. Ao held her gaze. And what if I am? Zara didn't look away. Then whatever you're hiding from, it will find you. Ao felt something shift in his chest. Not fear, recognition. He looked back at the sea. Maybe, he said quietly. As the last light faded, Zara stepped back. I should go, she said. Back to the market. No, she replied. Home. Ah nodded. See you tomorrow. Zara hesitated for a brief second. Then she gave a small, almost reluctant smile. You will, she said, and just like that, she turned and walked away. Ao stood there long after she was gone. The sound of the waves filled the silence. Her words replayed in his mind. You're hiding. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. She saw more than she should, more than anyone here had. And that was dangerous. But also he looked down at the sand, then back at the darkening horizon. For the first time in a long time, felt like something Raoul was beginning. Not built on wealth, not built on power, but on something far more fragile and far more valuable. connection. By the second week, the sea had stopped feeling like an enemy. It still challenged Ao, still tested his strength, his patience, his endurance, but it no longer rejected him completely. Now it tolerated him. And in the world of fishermen, that was progress. The mornings came earlier than his body wanted, but he no longer resisted them. Before dawn, while the sky still wore its deep indigo cloak, Al would rise from his narrow bed, stretch muscles that ached in places he didn't know existed, and step outside into the cool, salty air. The village would already be alive. Lanterns flickered like scattered stars. Men moved with quiet urgency. Voices carried softly in the darkness. And every morning without fail, Ah searched for one person. Sometimes she was there, sometimes she wasn't. But when she was, the day felt different. Ow! He turned at the sound of Bako's voice. Stop drifting, the older man barked. The sea doesn't wait for dreamers. Ow grabbed the edge of the boat and climbed in. Steady this time. No slipping, no awkward hesitation. Bako noticed. He didn't say anything, but the slight nod he gave was enough. Out on the water, the wind cut sharper than usual. The waves were rougher. The boat rocked harder. Today will not be kind, Bako muttered. Ao tightened his grip on the net. I've noticed it's never kind. Bako shot him a glance. Good. Then you're learning. That day was harder than most. The nets were heavy. The catch was inconsistent. And twice, Ao nearly lost his balance as the boat lurched violently beneath him, but he didn't panic, didn't freeze. He adjusted, reacted, adapted. Throw, Bako commanded. Ao cast the net, the spread. Wide, clean, strong. For a brief moment, everything aligned. The wind, the movement, the timing. Bako watched carefully, then gave a single approving grunt. That was the closest thing to praise Ao would ever get from him. By midday, the sun burned high overhead. The fishermen returned, dragging their boats onto the shore with tired but practiced movements. Ao jumped out, his legs unsteady for just a second before finding balance. His arms trembled from exertion. His shirt clung to his skin. But there was something new in his chest. Pride. Not the loud, arrogant kind he once knew. Something quieter, earned. You're improving. The voice came from behind him. Ao didn't need to turn. I had a good teacher, he said. Zara stepped beside him, shading her eyes from the sun as she looked out at the water. Don't get ahead of yourself, she replied. You're still far from good. Ao smirked, and yet, I didn't embarrass myself today. That's a low standard. It's a starting point. Zara glanced at him, a hint of a smile breaking through. You're stubborn. I've been told that will either help you or break you. Ao tilted his head slightly. Which do you think it's doing? Zara studied him for a moment. Ask me again in a week. Later that afternoon, Ao found himself at Zara's stall again, but this time something was different. The table was less full, the customers fewer, and Zara's expression, though still composed, carried a trace of something heavier. You're running out, Ao observed. Zara didn't look up as she arranged what little remained. Business hasn't been good. That doesn't make sense, Ao said. Your fish is the best in the village, she finished, glancing at him. He gave a small nod. So you've said. Zara leaned against the table slightly. Storms affect more than just the sea, she said. When fishermen struggle, everyone does. Ao looked at the nearly empty stall, then at her. Have you thought about changing how you sell? Zara raised an eyebrow. Changing how I sell, maybe where you position yourself, or how you display the fish. Or she cut him off with a look. You've been here, 2 weeks about that. And now you want to teach me my business. He paused, then smiled slightly. Not teach, just suggest. Zara crossed her arms. All right, fisherman, she said. Go on. Ao gestured toward the table. You arrange them neatly, which is good. But people don't just buy with logic. They buy with emotion. Zara frowned slightly. Emotion. If something looks more appealing, they're more likely to stop. He picked up a piece of fish, repositioning it slightly, stack them higher, create layers, make it feel abundant even if it's not. Zara watched him skeptical. And that works. It does. She studied the arrangement for a moment, then looked at him again. You've done this before. Ao hesitated. Just for a second, a little, he said. Zara didn't press, but her eyes lingered on him longer than usual. You're strange, she said finally. I've been told that too. The next day, Zara tried it. Reluctantly, carefully, she adjusted her stall the way. Ah suggested stacking the fish higher, arranging them more deliberately, creating a sense of fullness. And something surprising happened. People stopped more than usual. Some just looked, others bought. By midday, her sales had improved. Not dramatically, but noticeably. When Ao returned from the sea, he found her watching him approach. You did it, he said. Zara didn't smile immediately. She just looked at him. Then it worked. There was something in her voice. Not excitement, not pride, something softer. Acknowledgement. Ao nodded. I told you. Zara shook her head slightly. You didn't just guess that. Ao shrugged. Sometimes understanding people is more important than understanding things. Zara stepped closer. Who are you, Ao? The question was quiet but heavy. Ao met her gaze. Just someone trying to figure things out. Zara held his eyes for a moment longer, then stepped back. She said, I don't think that's the full story. Days passed, then more. Their interactions grew longer, easier, more natural. What started as brief exchanges turned into conversations. What began as curiosity turned into something deeper. One evening after a long day, Zara invited him to walk with her. Not directly, not formally. She just started walking along the shore and didn't tell him to leave. Ao fell into step beside her. The sun was setting again, painting the sky in warm hues. You don't talk much about yourself, Zara said. You don't ask much, Ao replied. She glanced at him. That's not true, then asked. Zara considered for a moment. What were you doing before you came here? Ao exhaled slowly. Working. What kind of work? The kind that never really ends. Zara nodded slightly. That sounds exhausting. It was. She kicked lightly at the sand as they walked. And now Ao looked out at the water. Now I'm tired in a different way. Zara smiled faintly. The sea does that. They walked in silence for a while. Comfortable. Silence. The kind that didn't need to be filled. Then Zara spoke again. My mother is sick. Ao turned to her. Her tone had changed. Softer, more guarded. She's been sick for a long time. Zara continued. Some days are better than others. O didn't interrupt. Didn't offer quick solutions. He just listened. I work every day, she said. Not because I want to, but because I have to. She glanced at him briefly. There's no one else. Ao felt something tighten in his chest. You're doing a lot, he said quietly. Zara shrugged. I'm doing what needs to be done. There was no self-pity in her voice, just truth. They reached a quiet part of the shore. The waves rolled in gently. The sky darkened. Zara stopped walking. So she said, turning to him, Why are you really here? Ao met her gaze. There it was again. That question stronger this time. Closer. I told you, he said. I needed a change. Zara stepped closer. And I told you that's not enough. He didn't move, didn't look away. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Zara sighed softly. Fine, she said. Keep your secrets. She turned, starting to walk again. But something in Ao shifted. Because I was tired, he said. Zara stopped, not turning. Of what? Ao took a breath. Of people wanting things from me. Zara turned slowly. And here they don't. No, he said, here. People expect you to work. That's it. Zara studied him carefully. That's still wanting something. It's different. Ao replied. How? Ao searched for the right words. Because it's honest. Zara held his gaze. Then slowly she nodded. I understand that. The wind picked up slightly, brushing against them. For a moment everything felt still, balanced, real. Zara crossed her arms lightly. You're still hiding something, she said. Ao smiled faintly. Probably. Zara didn't smile back. Just make sure it's not something that will hurt someone. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Poe felt it deeply. I won't, he said. Zara looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding whether to believe him. Then she nodded. Good. As they walked back toward the village, something had changed. Not dramatically, not visibly, but something real had taken root. Trust, small, fragile, but growing. And for Ao, that was both the most beautiful and the most dangerous thing he had found since arriving. Because for the first time since leaving his world behind, he wasn't just learning how to survive. He was learning how to feel. The village woke slowly that morning. Unlike the usual rush of voices and movement before sunrise, there was a strange quietness in the air, like something unseen had settled over the people, pressing gently but firmly. Ao noticed it immediately. Even the sea felt different. Not rough, not calm, just distant. Bako didn't say much as they prepared the boat. The other fishermen worked in silence, their usual teasing replaced with short, clipped exchanges. What's going on? Ao finally asked as he adjusted the net. Bako didn't look at him. Life, he replied. That wasn't an answer, but Ao had already begun to understand something about this place. People didn't always explain things. Sometimes you had to watch and figure it out yourself. The catch that morning was poor. Not terrible, but not enough. The kind of catch that made men frown quietly instead of complain loudly. By the time they returned to shore, the weight of it followed them like a shadow. Ao jumped off the boat, dragging it onto the sand with the others. His muscles burned, but he barely noticed. His eyes were already searching. Zara wasn't at her usual spot. That was the first sign. Normally, by this time, her stall would already be set. Fish neatly arranged, her voice cutting through the air as she negotiated with customers. Today, nothing, just an empty wooden table. Ao felt a small, unfamiliar tension settle in his chest. He walked closer, scanning the area. Looking for someone, he turned. It was one of the older women from the village, carrying a basket on her back. Yes, Ao said. Zara. The woman's expression shifted slightly. She didn't come out today. Why? The woman adjusted the basket. Her mother is worse. Ao's stomach tightened. Worse how? The woman hesitated, then sighed. Some days she can sit. Some days she can't even speak. Ao looked back at the empty stall. Today is not a good day. He didn't think, didn't weigh options, didn't consider whether it was his place. He just moved. Zara's house stood near the far edge of the village, closer to the shoreline, where the land dipped slightly. It was small, smaller than most, with walls made of uneven wood and a roof patched together with rusted sheets. It looked fragile, like it had been standing strong for too long without help. Ao stopped just outside the door. For the first time since coming here, he hesitated. This wasn't the shore. This wasn't the market. This was personal, private. He raised his hand and knocked once, twice, no answer. He was about to knock again when the door creaked open slightly. Zara stood there. Her eyes met his, and everything about her was different. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that settles deep in your bones. Her hair wasn't neatly tied as usual. Her clothes were simple, slightly wrinkled, and her expression, usually sharp and controlled, was softer but heavier. "Ow," she said, surprised. "I didn't see you at the market," he replied. Zara exhaled, quietly leaning against the door frame. "I stayed home. I heard your mother isn't well." She nodded. "She has her days." Ao glanced past her slightly. "Can I help?" The question lingered. Zara studied him as if weighing something. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." The inside of the house was dim. A single window let in soft light, illuminating the small space. A bed stood in one corner, a wooden chair in another. A few pots rested neatly near a makeshift kitchen area. And on the bed, a frail woman lay still. Her breathing was shallow, her face pale. Ao slowed his steps instinctively. "That's my mother," Zara said quietly. Ao nodded. "She's been like this for a while." Zara moved toward the bed, adjusting a thin cloth over her mother's body. "Years," she said. It started slowly. Then it didn't stop. Ao watched her carefully. "You take care of her alone?" Zara didn't answer immediately. Then yes. There was no hesitation in her voice. "No complaint, just truth." Ao stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Has she seen a doctor?" Zara let out a soft, almost humorless laugh. "With what money?" Ao opened his mouth, then stopped, because for the first time since arriving here he felt it. The weight of what he could do, the resources, the power, the solutions that were so easy for him before, and yet he couldn't use any of it. Not without breaking everything. His jaw tightened slightly. "I could try to." "They find someone," he said carefully. Zara shook her head. "No." E frowned. "No. I've heard that before," she said, her tone still calm but firmer now. "People come. They promise help. They say they'll return." She looked at him. "They don't." Ao held her gaze. "I'm not them." Zara's expression didn't change. "They all say that." Silence filled the room. Heavy, uncomfortable, real. Ao glanced at her mother again, then back at Zara. "I wasn't trying to." "I know," she said, cutting him off gently. She exhaled slowly. "I know you mean well." She sat on the edge of the bed, her shoulders slightly slumped. "But meaning well doesn't fix things." Ao nodded. "You're right." Zara looked at him, surprised. "You're not going to argue?" "No." That caught her off guard. "I've learned something since coming here," Ao continued. "Sometimes listening is more useful than talking." Zara studied him again. Longer this time. Then she looked away. Hours passed. Ao stayed. He didn't try to take over. Didn't try to fix things. He simply helped where he could. Fetching water, adjusting the room, sitting quietly when there was nothing to do. Zara noticed. She didn't say anything, but she noticed. Later in the afternoon, her mother stirred slightly. Zara leaned forward immediately. "Mama." The woman's eyes opened faintly, weak but aware. Zara took her hand gently. "I'm here." Her mother's gaze shifted, slowly landing on Ao. "Who is that?" she whispered. Zara glanced back. "This is Ao," she said softly. "He's a fisherman." Her mother studied him briefly, then gave the smallest nod. "Good," she murmured. "You need good people around you." Zara's throat tightened slightly. "Yes, Mama." The woman's eyes drifted closed again, her breathing steady but fragile. That evening, as the sun began to set, Ao stepped outside to give Zara a moment. Alone. The sky burned with color, but it didn't feel beautiful. Not today. Zara joined him a few minutes later. They stood side by side, looking out at the water. She likes you, Zara said quietly. Ao blinked. She barely knows me. She knows enough. Ao glanced at her, and you, Zara crossed her arms lightly. I'm still deciding. There was a pause. Then Zara spoke again. I used to believe in love, she said. Ao turned slightly. Used to, she nodded. There was someone. Ao felt something tighten in his chest. He wasn't from here. Zara continued. He came like you did. Different, curious. She let out a small breath. He said all the right things. Made all the right promises. Ooh didn't interrupt. She said yes. Zara added, her voice quieter now. I believed him. What happened? Oh, asked gently. Zara looked out at the sea. He left. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was not. Just like that. Ao asked. Zara nodded. When things got harder, he disappeared. Ao felt a heaviness settle deep inside him. He never came back, he asked. Zara shook her head. Not even once. Silence stretched between them again, but this time it was different. More fragile, more exposed. That's why I don't trust easily, Zara said. Ao swallowed slightly. That makes sense. She turned to him. So if you're hiding something, Ao, her eyes locked onto his. Make sure it's not the kind of thing that makes you disappear. The words hit him harder than anything she had said before, because deep down he knew his truth could do exactly that. Ao looked away, his thoughts racing. He had come here to find something real, something honest. And he had, but now that honesty demanded something in return, something he wasn't ready to give. Not yet. I'm not going anywhere, he said finally. Zara held his gaze. You can't promise that. I can try. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Trying is a start. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving them in the soft glow of twilight. For the first time, their connection wasn't just curiosity. It wasn't just tension. It was something deeper, something rooted in shared vulnerability, pain, understanding. But beneath it all, a quiet truth lingered. Zara had been hurt by someone who left, and Ao was a man built on a secret that could make him do exactly the same. And neither of them knew yet just how much that truth would cost them. The air changed before the sky did. That was the first sign. Ao noticed it the moment he stepped outside that morning. The breeze was heavier, slower, as if it carried a warning. No one had spoken aloud yet. The usual freshness of dawn felt muted. The village still moved, but differently, quieter, faster, more deliberate. Men didn't linger in conversation. Women gathered items with sharper focus. Even the children who normally ran freely through the sandy path stayed closer to their homes. Something was coming. Ao. Bako's voice cut through the stillness. Ao turned to see him standing near the boat, his expression tighter than usual. We go out now, Bako said. And we returned quickly. Ao frowned slightly. Why? Bako didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the horizon. The sky was still pale blue, but far in the distance. A darker line stretched across it. Storm, Bako said. Ao followed his gaze. It didn't look like much. Not yet. But something in Bako's tone made his chest tighten. Then why go out at all? Ao asked. Bako's eyes shifted back to him. Because if we don't fish, we don't eat. That was the end of the conversation. The boat pushed off sooner than usual. The water at first seemed calm. Too calm. Ao sat near the edge, gripping the net, his senses sharper than before. You feel it, one of the fishermen muttered. Ao nodded. Yes. It's the quiet before trouble, the man said. Bako stood at the front, scanning the horizon. Be quick, he ordered. We don't stay long. They cast the nets once, twice. The catch came fast, but not heavy. Time felt different out there, compressed, urgent. Al worked faster than he ever had before, his movements no longer hesitant. He adjusted his stance as the boat rocked slightly, anticipating the motion rather than reacting to it. Baco noticed again. He said nothing, but his approval was there. Then the wind shifted. Suddenly, violently, it hit the boat like an unseen force, rocking it sharply to one side. "Pull!" Baco shouted. The fisherman moved immediately, hauling in the nets as the water began to churn. The calm surface broke. Waves rose higher, faster. The sky darkened, not gradually, but all at once, like a curtain being pulled across the sun. Ho's heart began to pound. This wasn't like the other days. This wasn't manageable. This was danger. "Move!" Baco barked. The engine roared as they turned back toward shore. But the sea had already changed its mind. The waves grew larger, slamming against the sides of the boat. Water splashed over the edges. The wind howled sharp and relentless. Ao gripped the side tightly, his knuckles turning white. "Don't freeze," someone shouted. "I'm not." Ao snapped back, but his body betrayed him for a second, a moment too long. The boat lurched violently and he nearly lost his footing. A strong hand grabbed his arm. "Stand firm," Baco said, his voice cutting through the chaos. Ao steadied himself. He inhaled sharply, then adjusted feet, wider knees, bent balance centered. He remembered what Baco had said: "If you fight it, you'll fall." So he didn't fight. He moved with it. Back on shore, the village had erupted into motion. Zara stood near the waterline, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The wind whipped her hair around her face, but she didn't move. "Zara," someone called. "Come back." She ignored them. Her gaze remained locked on the distant boats, small shapes rising and falling against the growing waves. Her chest tightened too far. They were too far out. The rain came suddenly, heavy, unforgiving. Sheets of rain/lash. Water poured from the sky, blurring everything. The sea roared louder. The wind screamed. The boat struggled. "Keep it steady," Baco shouted. Al's arms burned as he held onto the side, his body moving with the violent rhythm of the waves. Crash. A sharp crack. One of the smaller boats nearby tilted dangerously. O's eyes widened. "There!" he shouted, pointing. Two men clung desperately to the side of the boat as it rocked violently, half filled with water. "They'll capsize," one of the fishermen yelled. Baco's jaw tightened. "Turn," he ordered. "What?" Another man shouted. "We need to get back. If they flip, they die." Baco snapped. The decision was made. The boat shifted direction, fighting against the current as it moved toward the struggling fishermen. Ho's heart pounded harder. This was madness, but it was necessary. On shore, Zara saw it. The change in direction. The danger. "No," she whispered, her hands clenched tightly at her sides. "They're not coming back," someone said behind her, but Zara shook her head. "No, he wouldn't," her voice faltered. She wasn't sure which part she believed. The rescue was chaos. The waves slammed into both boats as they drew closer. "Grab them," Baco shouted. One of the fishermen reached out but missed. The boat lurched again. Ao moved without thinking. He stepped forward, ignoring the instability beneath him. "Ow!" someone shouted, but it was too late. He grabbed one of the men just as a wave crashed over them, soaking him completely. The force nearly pulled him overboard. His grip slipped, then tightened. "Pull!" he yelled. Two others grabbed onto him, dragging both him and the struggling fisherman back into the boat. Another wave hit harder. The second man clung desperately, but he was slipping. Without hesitation, Ao moved again. "You'll fall," someone warned. But Ao didn't listen. He reached out, caught the man's wrist, and held on for a second. Felt like he might lose him. Then with one final pull, they got him aboard. The boat turned again, this time toward shore. No more detours, no more risks, just survival. The journey back felt endless. The storm didn't ease. If anything, it grew stronger, but slowly, painfully, the shore came closer. Zara saw them first. "They're coming," she shouted. Relief surged through the send crowd, but it didn't fully settle. Not yet. The boat slammed against the shore, the fishermen jumping out quickly, pulling it in with whatever strength they had left. Ao stumbled as his feet hit the sand. For a second the ground felt unstable. Then hands grabbed him. Voices surrounded him. "You're crazy. You almost died. What were you thinking?" But Ao barely heard them, because his eyes had already found her. Zara stood a few steps away, her face pale, her eyes wide. She walked toward him slowly, then stopped. For a moment neither of them spoke. The storm still raged around them, but everything between them felt still. "You," she started, her voice shaking slightly, then stopped. Ao stepped closer. "I'm fine." Zara shook her head. That was not fine. Her eyes searched his face as if confirming he was real. "You could have died." Ao exhaled slowly. "So could they." Zara's lips parted slightly. She looked past him at the two men he had helped save, then back at him. Something shifted in her expression. Something deeper. "You went back for them," she said quietly. Ao nodded. "They needed help." Zara studied him like she had never seen him before. Not as the strange outsider, not as the stubborn learner, but as something else, someone else. "You're not who I thought you were," she said. Ao's chest tightened slightly. "I told you that." Zara shook her head. "No, I thought you were pretending." She stepped closer. "But you're not." Her voice softened. "You're real." The word landed heavier than anything else she could have said, because that was exactly what he had come here for. The rain began to ease slowly. The storm passed, not completely, but enough to let the village breathe again. Later that night, Zara found him sitting alone near the shore. The sky was dark, the waves calmer now. "You're lucky," she said, as she approached. Ao glanced at her. "I don't feel lucky." "You should," she replied, sitting beside him. Ao leaned back slightly, staring at the water. "I didn't think," he admitted. Zara nodded. "I know that could have gone badly." "Didn't." Po looked at her. "That doesn't mean it was smart." Zara smiled faintly. "Maybe not." She turned toward him. "But it was good." There was a pause. "Then thank you," she said softly. Ao blinked. "For what?" Zara looked out at the sea again. "For showing me that people like you exist." Ao felt something shift inside him. People like me. People who don't run when things get hard. The words hit him deeply because they touched the one truth he was still hiding. Ao didn't respond immediately. Instead, he watched the waves. "Then I'm not going anywhere," he said. Zara glanced at him. "Good." That night, something changed between them. Not just curiosity, not just connection, something stronger. Respect. Trust, the kind that begins quietly, but grows into something impossible to ignore. But beneath it all, unseen, unspoken, a truth still lingered. Ao had proven he wouldn't run from danger. But soon, he would face something far more difficult: telling the truth. And that storm would be even harder to survive. After the storm, the village felt different. Not quieter, not slower, just closer. Storms had a way of doing that, reminding people how fragile everything was, how quickly life could shift from ordinary to dangerous. Conversations became warmer. Laughter lingered longer. Even arguments softened at the edges. And somehow, without either of them saying it out loud, Ao and Zara changed too. The morning after the storm, the sky returned clear, bright blue, stretching endlessly above the calm sea. The waves rolled gently again as if nothing had happened. But Ao knew better. The sea never forgot and neither did people. You've earned your place. Ao turned at Bako's voice. They stood near the boats preparing for another day out at sea. The other fishermen worked nearby. But their glances toward Ao were no longer filled with amusement. There was something new now. Respect. Ao wiped his hands on his trousers. I still have a lot to learn. Bako grunted. That never changes. He paused. But you didn't run. Ao met his gaze. I said I wouldn't. Bako nodded once. That matters. Work that day felt lighter. Not easier, but smoother. Ao moved with more confidence, his body adjusting naturally to the rhythm of the boat. His hands, though still healing in places, no longer fumbled with the nets. He had stopped trying to prove himself, and somehow that made everything better. By midday, the catch was decent, not extraordinary, but enough. Enough to ease tension, enough to bring small smiles. As they returned to shore, Ao's eyes instinctively searched the market, and there she was. Zara stood behind her stall, her arrangement fuller again, her movements sharper, more energized than the day before. But when she saw him, she paused just for a second. Then a small smile appeared. Not the teasing one, not the guarded one, something softer, something real. You're late, she said as he approached. Elle raised an eyebrow. We just got back. Exactly, she replied. Late. He shook his head slightly, a smile tugging at his lips. Good to see you too. Zara pretended to ignore that, but her eyes gave her away. You look alive, she said instead. Ao laughed quietly. That's a strange compliment. It fits, she said. He leaned slightly against her table, glancing at the fish. Better today, he observed. Zara nodded. Your advice helped. Ao tilted his head. So, you admit I was right. Zara narrowed her eyes. Don't get used to it. A customer approached, interrupting them. Zara shifted immediately into work mode. Focused, efficient, firm. Ao stepped back, watching. But this time he didn't just observe her skill. He noticed the small things. The way her voice softened for older customers. The way she stood straighter when negotiating. The way she never rushed anyone even when busy. She wasn't just selling fish. She was holding her world together. When the crowd thinned, Zara glanced at him again. You're still here. Ao shrugged. I don't have anywhere better to be. Zara studied him. Come, she said suddenly. Ao blinked. Where you'll see. She didn't wait for an answer. She simply picked up a smaller basket and started walking. Ao followed. They walked past the edge of the market, past the boats, past the usual paths Ao had grown used to, further toward a quieter part of the shoreline. The sand here was smoother, the water clearer, the noise of the village faded behind them. Not many people come here, Zara said. I looked around. I can see why. It's where I come when I need to think, she added. I glanced at her. And today, Zara met his eyes briefly. Today, I didn't want to think alone. That settled something inside him. Something quiet, something steady. They sat on the sand, a comfortable distance between them. The waves moved gently, reflecting the afternoon light. For a while, neither of them spoke, and for once there was no need to. Do you miss it? Zara asked suddenly. Ao frowned slightly. Miss what? Wherever you came from. Ao leaned back, resting on his hands. He thought about it. The city, the penthouse, the power, the noise. No, he said. Zara glanced at him. Not even a little. Poe shook his head. Here things make sense. Zara smiled faintly. They don't always. More than before, he replied. Zara picked up a small shell, turning it in her fingers. I used to think life would be bigger, she said. Hale looked at her. Bigger, how different? she corrected. Easier, maybe even exciting. She let out a soft breath. But life doesn't ask what you want. Ao nodded slowly. No, it doesn't. They sat in silence again, but this time it carried something deeper. Understanding. Tell me something, Zara said. Raised an eyebrow. That sounds serious. It is. He gestured for her to continue. What makes you happy? She asked. Blinked. Of all the questions, that wasn't what he expected. I don't know, he admitted. Zara frowned slightly. You don't know. Ao shook his head. I used to think I did, and now. Ao looked out at the sea. Now I'm learning again. Zara studied him carefully, then smiled. Good. She stood suddenly, brushing sand off her hands. Come on, groaned slightly. More walking. Yes. Where Zara smirked. You ask too many questions. They walked along the shoreline again, but this time slower, closer. Their hands brushed once, then again. Neither of them pulled away immediately. It was Zara who spoke first. You're not like the others, she said. Ao glanced at her. I'm starting to think that's a good thing. It is, she replied. She hesitated, then added, You listen. Ao smiled faintly. You've said that before. I mean it differently now. They stopped walking. The sun dipped lower, casting warm light across the water. Zara turned to face him fully. You stayed, she said. Poe held her gaze. I said I would. You could have left. She continued. After the storm, after everything, Poe shook his head. I didn't want to. Zara's expression softened. Why? The question hung between them. Heavy, simple, dangerous. Ao took a slow breath, then answered honestly. Because of you. Zara's eyes flickered slightly just for a moment. Silence followed, but this silence wasn't empty. It was full of realization, a fear of something beginning to take shape. You don't even know me, Zara said quietly. Ao stepped closer. I know enough. Zara swallowed slightly. That's not how this works. How does it work? Ao asked. Zara shook her head. People don't just choose each other like that. Maybe they should, Ao said softly. Zara looked away, but she didn't step back. She started, then stopped because she didn't know what came next. Ao closed the distance just a little more. Not touching, not yet, but close enough to feel the shift. I'm not asking for anything, he said. Not now. Zara looked back at him. Then what are you doing? Ao's voice dropped slightly. Staying. That word settled between them. And this time Zara didn't question it. The wind picked up gently, brushing against them. Zara let out a dash, slow breath. Then quietly, okay, it wasn't a confession. It wasn't a promise, but it was enough. From that day things changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but undeniably. They spent more time together, shared more moments, small ones, important ones. Ao helped at her stall sometimes, drawing curious looks from the villagers. Zara teased him when he struggled with simple tasks. He teased her when she took things too seriously. They laughed more, talked longer, walked further, and slowly, without either of them naming it, love began to grow. Not built on wealth, not built on status, but on something far more fragile. Trust, but even as it grew, something else grew with it. A quiet tension, an unspoken truth. Because every time Zara looked at him with trust in her eyes, Poe felt it, the weight of what he hadn't told her. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid of losing his wealth. He wasn't afraid of losing power. He was afraid of losing her. And deep down he knew the longer he stayed silent, the harder that loss would be. The morning began like any other. That was what made it dangerous. The sun rose gently over the horizon, casting a soft golden glow across the village. The sea moved in its usual rhythm, calm and steady as if it had never known rage. Fishermen prepared their boats, voices low but familiar again. Women arranged goods at the pout, market calling out prices with practiced ease. Life had settled, comfort had returned, and A.O. Adrian had almost begun to believe it could stay that way. He stood beside Zara's stall, adjusting a small stack of smoked fish the way he had learned. Not like that, Zara said, nudging his hand away. You're making it look uneven. A.O. smirked. You said variation makes it more appealing. I said controlled variation, she corrected. A.O. chuckled. You're very particular. I have to be, she replied. You still owe me for ruining yesterday's display. I improved it. You confused it. They shared a brief smile, one of those quiet, easy moments that had become so natural between them. The kind that didn't feel fragile anymore, the kind that felt safe. Then the sound came low, at first distant, unfamiliar. Ao's head turned slightly. Zara frowned. What is that? The sound grew louder. Engines. Multiple. Not boats. Not anything. The village was used to. People began to notice. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Children stopped playing. The sound grew closer, heavier, out of place against the soft rhythm of village life. And then they appeared. A line of black SUVs rolled into view, cutting through the sandy road like a foreign invasion. Dust rose behind them, swirling in the sunlight as the vehicles came to a slow, deliberate stop near the center of the village. Everything went still. O's chest tightened. He didn't need to ask. He knew. Zara looked at him, then back at the vehicles, then at him again. Something in her expression shifted. What is this? She asked quietly. Ao didn't answer, because for the first time since coming here he didn't know what to say. The doors of the SUVs opened. Men stepped out, dressed in dark suits, polished sharp, out of place in every possible way. Their shoes alone didn't belong here. Their presence disrupted everything. The villagers murmured among themselves. Who are they? What do they want? Is something wrong? One of the men stepped forward. Tall, composed, familiar, too familiar. O's jaw tightened. Daniel, he muttered under his breath. Daniel scanned the crowd quickly, efficient, focused, until his eyes landed on him. And in that moment, everything stopped. Ao, Zara whispered, confused. But Ao didn't respond. He couldn't, because the world he had left behind had just found him. Daniel walked forward, his expression unreadable. The other men remained behind him, watching, waiting. The villagers parted slightly as he approached. Uncertain, uneasy, Zara stood her ground. Her eyes moved between Daniel and Ao. Something wasn't right. She could feel it. Daniel stopped a few steps away. For a moment, he didn't speak. He simply looked at Ao, taking him in. The worn clothes, the rough hands, the sun-darkened skin. The version of him that didn't exist in their world. Then, Mr. Cole. The words cut through the air like a blade. Silence. Absolute silence. Zara blinked. Mr. What? Ao closed his eyes briefly. There it was. No more hiding. No more distance. No more time. Mr. Adrian Cole, Daniel repeated, his voice clear and steady. We've been looking for you. The name echoed not just in the air but in Zara's mind. She turned slowly toward Ao. Her expression changed. Not confusion, not curiosity, something deeper, something breaking. No, she said softly. Ao opened his eyes. Zara, no. She repeated louder this time, her gaze locked onto his. Tell me that's not true. Ao stepped forward. I can explain. Explain what? She snapped. That you're not Ao. That you're not some fisherman. That you're not. Her voice faltered slightly. Whatever they just called you. The villagers watched. Whispers spread. Tension thickened. El's chest tightened. I didn't lie about everything he said. Zara let out a hollow laugh. That's not what I asked. Daniel stepped forward slightly. Sir, we need to. Not now, Ao said sharply. Daniel paused, then stepped back. Zara's eyes didn't leave Ao. Say it, she said. Ao swallowed. My name is Adrian. The words felt heavier than anything he had ever said. Zara's face hardened. And Cole didn't respond. That's your name, she pressed. Yes, the truth landed. Hard final. Zara took a step back as if distance could make sense of it. Adrian Cole, she repeated slowly. Then she shook her head. No. Ao moved toward her. Zara, listen. She raised her hand. Don't. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Not yet. So what, she said. This was what a game, no. An experiment, no. Then what, she demanded. Ao struggled. For the words. I needed something real. Zara stared at him. And I was what your test. The question hit harder than anything else. No, Ao said, his voice softer now. You were never a test. Then, what was I? She asked. Ao stepped closer. You were everything I didn't know I was looking for. Zara's expression didn't soften. If anything, it grew colder. You lied to me. I didn't lie about how I feel. You lied about who you are. She shot back. Silence followed, because that was the truth. You let me believe, she continued, her voice shaking now, that you were like us. Poe shook his head. I am. No. She cut him off. You're not. The words landed like a wall between them. Zara looked at his hands. The same hands that had worked beside hers. The same hands that had held hers. The same hands that had saved lives in the storm. Now they felt different. Everything makes sense now, she said quietly. The way you talk, the way you think, the way you always had answers. Ao felt something break inside him. I should have known, she added. You couldn't have, he said. I should have, she repeated. Her voice softened, but it wasn't warmth. It was disappointment. You're not who I thought you were. Ao stepped forward again. But what we had. She echoed. Her eyes flashed. You mean the version of you I believed in? Ao stopped, because he had no answer for that. Zara shook her head. Slowly. I told you something, she said. O's chest tightened. About someone who left. She continued. Ao closed his eyes briefly. You said you weren't like him. I'm not, he said quickly. Zara looked at him. Really looked at him. You already are. The words hit deeper than anything else because this time he couldn't argue. Daniel stepped forward again, more urgent now. Sir, we don't have much time. The board, I said, not now. Ao snapped. Zara flinched slightly at the tone. Not because of the anger, but because it didn't belong to Ao. It belonged to someone else. Someone she didn't know. She took another step back, then another. I need you to leave, she said. Ao froze. What leave? She repeated. I'm not going anywhere. Yes, you are, she said firmly. Because whatever this is, she gestured between them. It's not real anymore. Ao felt the words like a physical blow. It is real, he insisted. Zara shook her head. No. Tears filled her eyes now, but she didn't let them fall. Maybe your feelings are real, she said. But everything else, she took a step back further away. That was built on a lie. Silence fell again. Heavy. Final. The villagers watched. No one spoke. Ao stood still. For the first time since coming here, he didn't know what to do. Zara turned and walked away. He didn't stop her because deep down he knew this was the moment everything changed. The sea still moved, the village still breathed, the world still turned, but the life he had built, the love he had found, had just shattered. And this time, no amount of strength, no amount of determination could fix it instantly. Because some storms didn't come from the sky, they came from the truth. The village didn't feel the same. Nothing had physically changed. The same boats lined the shore. The same waves rolled in steady rhythm. The same voices carried through the air. But something unseen had shifted. Something fragile had broken, and everyone could feel it. Adrian stood exactly where Zara had left him. The dust from the SUVs had long settled. The murmurs of the villagers had faded into low, distant conversations, but he hadn't moved, not even a step. "Sir." Daniel's voice came carefully this time. Not sharp, not urgent, just cautious. Adrian didn't respond. He was still staring at the path Zara had taken. As if she might come back, as if this moment might undo itself. "She's gone," Daniel added quietly. That pulled Adrian back. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. "I can see that." Daniel hesitated before speaking again. "We need to leave." Adrian turned slightly. "No." Daniel frowned. "Sir, the situation is serious. The board is—" I said no. This time his voice carried weight. Authority, the kind he had buried for weeks. The nearby villagers shifted uneasily. They heard it. That tone didn't belong to Ao. Daniel lowered his voice with respect. "You've already been gone too long." Adrian looked at him. "For the first time in my life, I stayed somewhere because I wanted to." Daniel didn't respond because he understood what that meant. Adrian glanced around the village. The same place that had once felt like freedom now felt distant. Not because it had changed, but because he had been pulled back into who he really was. "I'll come back," Adrian said. Daniel's brows furrowed slightly. "Sir, I'm not finished here." But even as he said it, a quiet doubt crept in because something told him Zara wouldn't be waiting. He walked away from the center of the village slowly, not toward the SUVs, not yet. Instead, toward her house. Each step felt heavier than the last. Not from exhaustion, from hesitation, from uncertainty, from something he had never struggled with before: fear. When he reached her door, it was closed. He stood there for a moment, then knocked. No answer. He knocked again. "Zara." Silence. Inside. Zara sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clenched tightly in her lap, her breathing uneven. She had heard him. Of course she had. Every knock felt like it echoed inside her chest. "Zara, please," Adrian said from outside. "I just want to talk." Her eyes filled. Again, but this time the tears didn't stay back. They fell quiet, uncontrolled. She pressed her hand against her mouth, trying to steady herself. "I know you're in there," Adrian continued. Of course he knew. He always seemed to know things. That was part of the problem. "Please," he said again. Zara closed her eyes, and for a moment she almost stood, almost walked to the door, almost opened it. But then the memory hit: Mr. Adrian Cole. The name echoed in her mind, sharp, cold, unfamiliar. And just like that, she stayed where she was, outside. Adrian waited. Minutes passed, then more, but the door never opened. He let out a slow breath, resting his hand briefly against the wood. "I didn't come here to hurt you," he said quietly. Inside, Zara shook her head. "But you did," she whispered. He couldn't hear her, but somehow felt like he understood anyway. After a while, Adrian stepped back. The silence was answer enough, and for the first time since he had met her. He turned away. By evening, the SUVs were gone. The village returned to its rhythm, but not its peace. Zara didn't go to the market, didn't go to the shore, didn't speak to anyone beyond what was necessary. She stayed inside with her mother, with her thoughts, and with the memories every moment replayed. Every word, every look, the way he had smiled, the way he had listened, the way he had stayed. Had any of it been real? She pressed her hands against her face. "Yes," she whispered. That was the problem. It had been real. and that made it worse. Miles away, the city welcomed Adrian Cole back like nothing had changed. The penthouse lights glowed again. The staff moved quietly, efficiently. Everything was exactly as he had left it and yet felt wrong. Adrian stood in the same spot as before. Glass walls, endless skyline, perfect silence. But this time the emptiness felt louder. "Your schedule has been adjusted," Daniel said, standing nearby. "Meetings have been rescheduled. The board is expecting you tomorrow." Adrian didn't turn. "Cancel them," Daniel hesitated. "We've already delayed." "Cancel them." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Yes, sir." Silence returned. Adrian stared out at the city. He had everything back: power, control, influence. And yet none of it mattered because the one thing he had found, the porate, one thing he couldn't buy, he had lost. That night sleep didn't come. Adrian lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling he had once stared at before leaving. But this time, he knew what was missing. Her voice, her presence, her honesty. He sat up suddenly, running a hand through his hair. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had come to find something real, and he had. But he hadn't been real in return. Back in the village, Zara sat outside her house. The night air was cool, the waves soft. She hugged her knees tightly. "He lied," she said quietly. Her mother, weak but awake, looked at her. "Did he?" she asked softly. Zara frowned. "He told me he was someone else." Her mother nodded slightly. "But how did he treat you?" Zara hesitated. That question she didn't want to answer. "He was kind," she admitted. "He stayed. He helped." Her voice softened. "He cared." Her mother watched her carefully. "Then, maybe not everything was a lie." Zara shook her head quickly. "That doesn't matter." "It does," her mother said gently. Zara looked away. "People show who they are in what they do," her mother continued. "Not just in what they say." Zara swallowed, but he hid the truth. Her mother nodded. "Yes." Pause. "But sometimes people hide because they're afraid." Zara's chest tightened. Afraid of what? Her mother looked at her. Losing something important. Zara didn't respond because deep down, she understood that feeling. Days passed. Adrian threw himself into work. Meetings, decisions, negotiations. He moved like he always had, spoke like he always had. But something was off. He was sharper, colder, more distant. Because now he knew what he was missing. Zara returned to the market, but she wasn't the same. Her laughter was quieter, her smiles rarer. She worked. She survived. But the light in her had dimmed. And somewhere between the city and the sea, between wealth and simplicity, between truth and lies, two people stood on opposite sides of the same feeling. Love, unresolved, unfinished, and still very real. Because no matter how far Adrian had returned to his world, and no matter how hard Zara tried to stay in hers, neither of them could forget. And that was where the real battle began. The boardroom was exactly as Adrian remembered it. Cold, precise, immaculate. A long glass table stretched across the center, reflecting the overhead lights with sharp clarity. Floor-tolling windows framed the city skyline, reminding everyone inside of the power they held or believed they held. Adrian sat at the head of the table, back straight, expression, controlled, hands folded calmly in front of him. To anyone watching, he was exactly the man they expected. "Let's begin." The voice came from Mr. Harrington, one of the senior board members. Gray-haired, sharp-eyed, and always impatient. "We've delayed long enough." Adrian gave a small nod. "Go ahead." Charts appeared on screens. Numbers filled the room. Revenue projections, market expansions, acquisition strategies. Voices overlapped, confident, calculated, relentless. Normally Adrian would lead this command, it shape it. Today he listened. And if we finalize the merger, another board member continued, we can secure dominance across 3 additional sectors within the year. Dominance, control, expansion. The words echoed, but they felt distant. Adrian's gaze drifted slightly toward the window. The city stretched endlessly alive, demanding, but in his mind he saw something else. A shoreline, a small wooden house, a girl standing barefoot in the sand. Adrian, the voice pulled him back. Mr. Harrington was watching him closely. Your thoughts? The room fell silent. Adrian leaned back slightly in his chair. For a moment he said nothing. Then I don't care about the merger. The words landed softly, but the effect was immediate. What Harrington said, I don't care, Adrian repeated. A murmur spread across the table. Confusion, disbelief. With respect, another member spoke. This is a billion-dollar decision. Adrian nodded. I'm aware. Then why would you? Because it doesn't matter. Silence again, heavier this time. Harrington leaned forward. Everything we do here matters. Adrian looked at him. For the company, yes. And for you, Harrington added. Adrian paused. Then no. That answer unsettled him more than anything else. You've built this empire, Harrington said. You don't just lose interest overnight. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. I didn't lose interest overnight, he said. I just finally understood something. And what is that? Harrington pressed. Adrian leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. That I built something powerful, he paused. But not something meaningful. The room went still. That's a dangerous mindset, someone muttered. No, Adrian replied. It's an honest one. Harrington shook his head. This is temporary. You've been away too long. You just need to refocus. Adrian almost smiled. You don't understand, he said quietly. I've never been more focused. Another silence. Then I'm stepping down. This time the room didn't just go silent. I froze. You're what? Harrington demanded. I'm stepping down as CEO. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Final. That's not possible. Someone said it is. Adrian replied. You can't just walk away from this. I can, Adrian said calmly. And I am. Harrington stood abruptly. This company depends on you. Adrian met his gaze. No, he gestured around the table. It depends on all of you. That's not the same, Harrington snapped. Adrian stood slowly. No, he agreed. It's not. He looked around the room at the people who had once defined his world. I built this company to succeed, he said. And it will pause. But I'm done building my life around it. The room erupted, voices clashed, questions flew. Is this about something else? Are you being pressured? Is there a deal we don't know about? Adrian didn't answer any of them because none of them understood the truth. This wasn't about business. It was about he. Later that day, Adrian stood alone in his penthouse again. But this time he wasn't looking at the city. He was packing. Not everything, just enough. Simple clothes, practical things, the same way he had left before. Daniel stood near the door watching quietly. You're really doing this, he said. Adrian zipped the bag. Yes, for her. Adrian didn't answer immediately. Then yes. Daniel nodded slowly. She must be important. Adrian looked at him. She is. Pause. You're risking everything. Daniel added. Adrian shook his head. No. He lifted the bag. I already did that. Back in the village, Zara stood at her stall. The day was slow, the heat heavy. She arranged the fish carefully the same way she always did. But her movements lacked something. Energy. Zara. She looked up. It was one of the fishermen. There's talk in the village, he said. Zara frowned slightly. What kind of talk about that man? Her chest tightened. He left, she said quickly. The man shook his head. They say he's coming back. Zara's hand stilled. That doesn't make sense. The fisherman shrugged. Maybe not. He paused. But people don't leave places like this. And then return. Zara looked away. They do, she said quietly. The fisherman studied her, then nodded. Sometimes, he said. That evening Zara sat by the shore again. The waves rolled gently. The sky dimmed slowly. Everything looked the same. But she wasn't. Her thoughts circled endlessly. He lied. He cared. He left. He stayed. Nothing settled. Nothing made sense. Miles away, a car moved steadily along a long, dusty road. No convoy, no fleet, just one vehicle. Inside, Adrian sat in silence. No music, no distractions, just thought and one clear decision. He wasn't going back as... Oh. He wasn't going back as the man she believed in. He was going back as himself. Fully honestly, for the first time, the village lights flickered in the distance as night fell. Zara stood slowly, brushing sand from her clothes. She turned ready to leave, then paused, because something felt different. Not seen, not heard, but felt a shift. She looked toward the road, and for a moment her heart skipped. Not because she saw him, but because somehow she knew he was coming back. And this time there would be no lies, no masks, no hiding, just truth. And whatever came with it. Because love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about choice. And Adrian Cole had finally made his. The village noticed before Zara did. Not because of noise, not because of spectacle, but because of difference. He didn't come back the way he left. No long line of black SUVs. No men in suits. No dust cloud announcing power. Just one vehicle, quiet, unassuming, is stopped at the edge of the village. And from it stepped a man who no longer tried to belong to one world or the other. Adrian Cole, not dressed like a billionaire, not dressed like a fisherman, but something in between. Simple, clean, honest. The villagers watched. Some whispered. Some stared. Some simply waited. He didn't look at them. He didn't explain. He didn't announce himself. He just walked past. The boats, past the market, past the places where he had once been. Oh, each step carried weight, not of status, but of truth. Zara was by the shore. Of course, she was the place where everything had begun, the place where things made the most sense. She stood facing the sea, her back to the village. The wind moved gently around her, carrying the soft rhythm of the waves. She had felt it earlier. That shift, that quiet certainty. Now she knew why. Footsteps approached. Slow, steady. She didn't turn immediately. She didn't need to. Ow. The name left her lips softly. Not as a question. Not as a welcome. Just a memory. Adrian stopped a few steps behind her. That's not my name, he said. Zara closed her eyes briefly. I know. The silence that followed was heavy, but not hostile. Not sharp. Just real. She turned slowly, and there he was. Not the man she had first met, not the stranger she had rejected, but something else, something clearer, something honest. You came back, she said. Adrian nodded. I told you I would. Zara studied him long, carefully. You say a lot of things, she replied. There was no anger in her tone, but there was distance. Adrian didn't look away. I know. That caught her slightly off guard. You're not going to defend yourself, she asked. I'm not here to defend anything, he said. I'm here to tell the truth. Zara folded her arms. Lightly. Now Adrian stepped a little closer. Not too close. Just enough. Yes. The wind shifted slightly, brushing between them. Zara waited. Adrian exhaled slowly. My name is Adrian Cole, he said. You already know that. Zara didn't respond. I'm not a fisherman, he continued. I never was. Her jaw tightened slightly. I came here because I was tired, he said, of people seeing me for what I had, not who I was. Zara's eyes flickered. So, you decided to lie? She asked. Adrian shook his head. I decided to leave everything behind. That's not the same thing, she said. No, he admitted. It's not. Pause. But I didn't come here to deceive anyone. Zara laughed softly. You lived under a different name. You pretended to struggle. You let people believe something that wasn't true. She looked at him. That's deception. Adrian didn't argue. You're right. That answer stopped her. Again for a moment. She didn't know what to do with it. I should have told you, he continued. Yes, she said immediately. I know. Another silence. Zara looked away briefly out at the sea, then back at him. Why didn't you? The question was quieter now, less sharp, more personal. Adrian took a breath. Because I was afraid. Zara frowned slightly, afraid of what Adrian met her eyes. That the moment you knew who I was. He paused. You would stop seeing me the way you did? Zara's chest tightened. That's not fair, she said. I know, he replied, but it's the truth. The waves rolled in behind them, steady, unchanging. Zara's voice softened. So instead you let me believe something else. Adrian nodded. Yes. She stepped closer now. Do you know what hurt the most? She asked. Adrian didn't answer. You didn't trust me, she said. The words landed deeper than anything else. I trusted you with everything, she continued. My struggles, my fears, my life. Her voice trembled slightly. And you, she paused, held back the biggest part of yours. Adrian's chest tightened. You're right, he said. No defense. No excuses, just truth. Zara searched his face. You say you were afraid, she said. But do you understand what that made me feel? Adrian nodded slowly. Yes, say it, she said. He hesitated, then betrayed. Zara swallowed. Used her eyes flickered like I wasn't enough. To be trusted. Silence. Adrian stepped closer. Just one step. You were more than enough, he said. Zara shook her head. Then why didn't you act like it? That question he had no easy answer for. I was selfish, he said finally. Zara blinked. I wanted to keep what we had. He continued, even if it meant delaying the truth. Her expression shifted slightly. That's not love, she said. No, Adrian agreed. Pause. But what I feel for you is, the words settled between them. Not rushed, not dramatic, just honest. Zara looked away again, her emotions pulling in different directions. You can't just say that, she whispered. I'm not just saying it, Adrian replied. He gestured slightly toward the village. I walked away from everything. Zara looked back at him. Everything, she asked. Adrian nodded. My company, my position, my life there. Her eyes widened slightly. You're lying, she said instinctively. I'm not. She searched his face. You expect me to believe you gave all that up. For this, Adrian stepped closer. For you, the air shifted again. Zara's breath caught slightly. That's not something you do lightly, she said. I didn't, he replied. Silence. Long, heavy. Zara's voice softened again. And what happens if this doesn't work? She asked. Adrian didn't hesitate. Then I stay anyway. Zara frowned. That doesn't make sense. It does to me, he said. She studied him. Why? She asked. Adrian's voice dropped slightly. Because for the first time in my life. He paused. I know what matters. Zara looked at him. Really looked at him. Not the name, not the status, just the man. You hurt me, she said quietly. I know. I don't trust you the way I did before. I know that doesn't just come back. I know. Paused. Then I'm not asking you to trust me right now, Adrian said. Zara blinked. I'm asking. You to let me earn it again." The words lingered. No pressure, no demand, just patience. Zara's eyes filled again, but this time she didn't fight it. "You don't even know if I can forgive you," she said. Adrian nodded. "I know silence." The waves rolled in again, steady, patient. Zara exhaled slowly. Then she stepped closer, not fully closing the distance. "But enough. I don't know what this is anymore," she said. Adrian met her gaze. "It's real," he said. She searched his eyes, then very softly. "Okay, it wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. And for now, that was enough." As the sun dipped lower behind them, casting warm light across the shore, two people stood between what was broken and what could still be rebuilt. Slowly, carefully, honestly, because this time there were no lies left, only truth and the choice to stay. The village didn't change overnight, and neither did they. The morning after Adrian returned, the sun rose just like it always did. Soft lights stretching across the sea, fishermen preparing their boats, voices slowly filling the air. Life moved forward unbothered by emotional turning points. But for Zara and Adrian, everything had shifted. He didn't go looking for her that morning. That was the first difference. Instead, Adrian woke early, stepped outside the small room he had rented again, and walked toward the shore, not to find her, but to work. Baco was already there. He looked up as Adrian approached. There was no greeting, just a long, assessing look. "You came back," Baco said. "Yes." Baco's eyes narrowed slightly, and this time Adrian didn't hesitate. "No pretending." Baco studied him for another moment, then nodded once. "Good." He turned toward the boat. "Then get in. No ceremony, no forgiveness speech, no questions about money or power, just work." And somehow that meant more than anything else. Out on the water, the sea welcomed him the same way it always had. Not kindly, not harshly, just honestly. The boat rocked, the wind shifted, the nets resisted, and Adrian worked not to prove anything, not to impress anyone, but because this was part of who he had become. His hands, once soft, were now hardened. His movements, once unsure, now steady. He cast the net cleanly, pulled with strength, adjusted with instinct. Baco watched him, then gave a small grunt. "You've changed," the older man said. Adrian didn't look up. "I know." Back on shore, Zara stood at her stall. She saw him. Of course she did. He didn't look toward her, didn't try to catch her attention, didn't approach. He simply worked. And that confused her. Days passed. Adrian kept his distance. Not out of fear, not out of avoidance, but out of respect. He greeted her when their paths crossed. Simple, calm morning. Nothing more. No pressure, no pushing. And slowly something inside Zara began to shift. "You're thinking about him again." Zara looked up. Her mother sat nearby, watching her with quiet understanding. "I'm not," Zara said quickly. Her mother smiled faintly. "You are." Zara sighed. "He's different," she admitted. "Yes. He's not trying to convince me." Her mother nodded. "That's a good sign." Zara frowned slightly. "Why?" "Because real change doesn't need to announce itself," her mother said gently. Zara looked away. That evening, Zara found him by the shore. Not by accident. She had chosen to go there, and somehow she knew he would be there. Adrian sat near the water repairing a net. He looked up as she approached. There was no surprise in his expression, just acknowledgement. "Zara." She stopped a few steps away. "You're avoiding me," she said. Adrian shook his head. "No." "Then what are you doing?" Adrian gestured slightly to the space around him. "Giving you space." Zara folded her arms. "I didn't ask for space. You needed it," he replied. That answer made her pause. She stepped closer. You don't get to decide that for me. Adrian nodded. You're right. Pause. I decided it for myself. Zara blinked. Why? Adrian looked at her. Because I don't want to rush you into something you're not ready for. Silence. Zara studied him carefully. You've changed, she said. Adrian smiled faintly. I'm trying to, she sat beside him. Not too close, but closer than before. You're not going back, she asked. Adrian shook his head. No. What about your company? It's still there, he said. And you, I'm here. Zara looked out at the sea. That's a big thing to walk away from. Adrian followed her gaze. So is this. The words settled between them. Zara didn't respond immediately, because she understood. I don't trust you completely, she said finally. Adrian nodded. I know, but she hesitated. I don't feel like I did before either. Adrian turned slightly toward her. Before how Zara exhaled slowly. Before I felt safe, her voice softened. Now I feel unsure. Adrian listened, didn't interrupt. I don't like that, she added. I don't either, he said quietly. She looked at him. So what do we do? Adrian paused. Then we don't. Fix it all at once. Zara frowned slightly. Then how? Adrian met her eyes. We build it again. The simplicity of that answer caught her off guard. No shortcuts, he added. No pretending. Zara searched his face. And if it doesn't work, Adrian didn't hesitate. Then at least we know it was real. Silence, but this time felt different, less heavy, more open. Days turned into weeks. And slowly they found their way back. Not to what they had before, but to something. New, something stronger. Adrian continued working with the fishermen. Not out of necessity, but out of choice. Zara continued her business. Stronger, smarter, more confident. They talked more, laughed again, walked along the shore. Not as strangers, not as lovers. Fully healed, but as two people learning each other again. Trust didn't return all at once. Came in small moments. When Adrian showed up every day, when he kept his word every time, when he listened, even when it was hard, and Zara, she led him slowly, carefully, but willingly. One evening months later, they stood by the shore again, the same place where everything had begun. The sun dipped low, the waves moved gently. Zara looked at him. You stayed, she said. Adrian smiled. I told you I would. She stepped closer. This time no distance. I believe you now, she said. Those words, simple, quiet, meant everything. Adrian didn't rush, didn't react dramatically. He just nodded. Thank you, Zara studied him. You know, she said softly. You could have had everything. Adrian looked at her. I do. She smiled. No, she said. You have everything. And for the first time that was true. The village continued to live. The sea continued to move. The world continued to turn. But in that quiet place between waves and wind, a man who once had everything finally found something that mattered more. Not power, not wealth, not control, but love. Real, hard-earned, unbreakable. And this time stayed. Thanks for watching.